Before we begin, let us know where you're listening from. After the story, rate it from 1 to 10. Now let's start. The year was 1867, and the Arizona Territory was as unforgiving as it was beautiful. Jack Zimmerman wiped the sweat from his brow as he surveyed his modest ranch. 3 years of backbreaking work had transformed what was once bare earth into something resembling a home, but the isolation was beginning to wear on him. At 32, Jack had known plenty of hardship. The war, the death of his parents, and now the daily struggle of maintaining a cattle ranch on the frontier. The setting sun cast long shadows across his property as he walked the perimeter of the fence he'd spent the day repairing. His nearest neighbor, Elijah Thompson, lived 5 miles east, and the small settlement of Cooper's Creek was a full day's ride south. Out here, a man had plenty of time to think, and lately, Jack's thoughts had been drifting toward the emptiness of his life. As he approached his cabin, he noticed fresh tracks in the dirt, not his own. Jack's hand instinctively moved to the revolver on his hip. Raiders were common in these parts, both white and native. He'd had run-ins with both, though the local Apache had mostly left him alone since he'd helped an injured brave 2 winters back. Jack moved cautiously, following the tracks to his barn. The door was slightly ajar, though he distinctly remembered closing it. Taking a deep breath, he pushed it open, gun drawn. "Come out," he called firmly. "I'm armed." A rustling came from behind a stack of hay bales, and Jack tightened his grip on the revolver. Slowly, a figure emerged, a young woman with long black hair and copper skin. She was dressed in a mixture of traditional Apache clothing and what appeared to be a stolen settler's blouse. Her dark eyes held both fear and defiance. "I take no food," she said in halting English. "Only rest. I go now." Jack kept his gun level. "Who are you? Why are you here?" "I am Willow," she said. "Willow Proudheart in your tongue. I run from soldiers. They attack my people." Jack hesitated. Relations between settlers and the Apache were strained at best, but he wasn't one to turn away someone in need, regardless of their heritage. Slowly, he lowered his weapon. "Are you hurt?" he asked. She shook her head. "Hungry. Tired. Come inside," Jack said after a moment's deliberation. "You can eat, rest, and be on your way by morning." Willow followed him cautiously to the cabin. As they walked, Jack noticed she was limping slightly, despite her claim of not being injured. Inside, he lit a lamp and gestured toward the table while he reheated leftover stew from earlier in the day. "Where's your family?" he asked, placing a bowl in front of her. She ate several spoonfuls before answering. "Scattered. Soldiers came to our camp 3 days ago. My father, Chief Many Horses, told us to run. I do not know who lived." Jack watched her eat, his mind racing. Harboring an Apache woman, especially one whose tribe might have been in conflict with the army, could mean trouble. But the alternative was sending her back into the wilderness alone. "You can stay the night," he said finally. "I'll sleep in the barn." Her eyes met his. "You help me, why?" Jack shrugged. "Same reason I help anyone. It's the right thing to do." That night, as Jack settled onto a makeshift bed of hay in the barn, he wondered about the woman sleeping in his cabin. In the 4 years since moving to the territory, he'd had limited interaction with the Apache. Most settlers viewed them with suspicion at best, hatred at worst. But Jack had always believed in judging people by their actions, not their heritage. Dawn broke with the sound of hoofbeats. Jack bolted upright, grabbing his rifle before peering through a crack in the barn door. 5 riders approached, U.S. cavalry, led by a captain Jack recognized from his infrequent trips to Cooper's Creek. Cursing under his breath, Jack hurried to the cabin, entering to find Willow already awake and alert. "Soldiers," he said simply. "Stay here." "They will search," she replied, her eyes wide. "They always search. Hide under the bed," Jack instructed. "I'll handle this." Stepping outside, Jack raised a hand in greeting as the riders approached. "Morning, Captain Markham. What brings you out this way?" The captain, a stern man with a thick mustache, dismounted. "Zimmerman. We're tracking a band of Apache. Raided a supply wagon 2 days back. Killed 2 men. Seen any sign of them?" Jack shook his head. "Been working the south pasture past few days. Haven't noticed anything unusual." "Mind if we take a look around?" Markham asked, though it wasn't really a question. "Help yourself to water from the well," Jack replied. But I'd appreciate if you'd respect my property. I've got nothing to hide. As the soldiers dispersed to search the premises, Markham followed Jack to the cabin. Jack's heart pounded as they entered, but he maintained a calm exterior, offering the captain coffee. "Cooking for two?" Markham asked, nodding toward the table where 2 bowls remained from the previous night's meal. "Had Elijah Thompson over yesterday," Jack lied smoothly. "Still haven't cleared up." The captain's eyes narrowed slightly, but he accepted the coffee. After a cursory glance around the cabin, never bending to look under the bed, he rejoined his men outside. "We'll be moving on," Markham said. "But keep your eyes open, Zimmerman. These Apache aren't to be trusted. Chief Many Horses and his band have been causing trouble for months." Jack nodded noncommittally. "Safe travels, Captain." Only after the dust from the departing riders had settled did Jack return to the cabin. "You can come out now," he called. Willow emerged from under the bed, her expression guarded. "He spoke of my father." "What did he say?" Jack hesitated. "He claims your people raided a wagon. Said 2 men were killed." "Lies," Willow said firmly. "My father seeks peace. It is Red Fox's band that fights. The White Eyes see all Apache as one." "I believe you," Jack said, surprising himself with the sincerity of the statement. "But it's not safe for you here. They'll be back." "I must find my people," she agreed. "But not today. They will watch the trails." Jack sighed. "Then I guess you're staying a bit longer." The next few days established a cautious routine. Willow remained hidden whenever Jack went into the open, but inside the cabin, they slowly began to talk. Jack learned she was 19, educated partially by missionaries before her father removed her from their school, fearing they would strip away her heritage. She spoke English well, along with Spanish and her native tongue. In turn, Jack shared stories of his life before the ranch, his childhood in Pennsylvania, his brief time fighting for the Union, and his decision to head west after the war. "Why do you live alone?" she asked one evening as they sat by the fire. "No wife? No children?" Jack poked at the embers with a stick. "Never found the right woman, I suppose. And out here, the pickings are slim. In my tribe, a man of your age without a wife would be unusual." "Is that so?" Jack smiled faintly. "And what about you?" "No husband." Willow looked away. "I was to marry the son of a neighboring chief. Alliance marriage. But I ran before the ceremony." "So you were running even before the soldiers came?" She nodded. 2 moons ago. My father was angry but did not force me to return. He said I had the spirit of the eagle, unable to be caged. As the days passed, Jack found himself increasingly drawn to Willow. It wasn't just her obvious beauty, though that was undeniable, but her strength, intelligence, and the surprising moments of humor that emerged as she became more comfortable around him. A week after her arrival, Jack returned from checking his cattle to find Willow had prepared a traditional Apache meal. "You have shared your food," she explained. "I wanted to share mine." The gesture touched him more deeply than he expected. As they ate, their conversation flowed easily, punctuated by laughter and lingering glances that neither of them acknowledged. That night, unable to sleep, Jack sat on his porch watching the stars. He heard the cabin door open and close softly as Willow joined him. "The stars are the same," she said, sitting beside him. "Apache or white man, we look at the same sky. Seems like we have more in common than differences," Jack replied. "Yet your people and mine kill each other." "Not all of us," Jack said, turning to look at her. Their eyes met, and in that moment, something shifted between them. Willow reached out tentatively, her fingers brushing against his. Jack took her hand, and they sat in silence, watching the night sky. The following morning brought reality crashing back. Jack spotted dust on the horizon, riders approaching. But these weren't soldiers, they were Apache. "Your people?" he asked Willow, who stood watching from the doorway. She nodded, her expression a mix of relief and something like regret. "Yes, I recognize Tall Bear's horse." 4 warriors approached cautiously, weapons ready but not aimed directly at Jack. The leader, a man with a scarred face and penetrating eyes, spoke to Willow in their language. She responded, gesturing occasionally toward Jack. Finally, the man turned to Jack. "I am Tall Bear, brother of Many Horses. You have protected his daughter. We are in your debt." "She needed help," Jack said simply. "Anyone would have done the same." Tall Bear's expression suggested he highly doubted that. "We have found a safe place. The soldiers have moved north." It is time for Willow to return to her people. Jack nodded, trying to mask the sudden hollow feeling in his chest. Of course, Willow disappeared into the cabin, emerging with the few possessions she had accumulated during her stay. She approached Jack, standing closer than was customary. "Thank you," she said softly. "I will not forget your kindness." "Be safe," Jack replied, wishing he could say more, do more, anything to postpone her departure. With a final look, Willow mounted behind one of the warriors, and the group rode away. Jack watched until they disappeared from view, then turned back to his empty cabin, which suddenly seemed colder and smaller than before. Days passed, turning into weeks. Jack threw himself into his work, expanding the corral, repairing fences, anything to keep his mind occupied. But thoughts of Willow remained, haunting his quiet evenings. A month after her departure, Jack rode into Cooper's Creek for supplies. The town was buzzing with news. A peace treaty was being negotiated with several Apache bands, including that of Chief Many Horses. "Those savages can't be trusted," muttered Oscar Fuller, the store owner, as he filled Jack's order. "Sign a treaty one day, raid a homestead the next." Jack bit back a sharp retort. "Seems to me there's been wrong on both sides." Fuller gave him a suspicious look. "You going soft on Indians, Zimmerman? That's a quick way to end up scalped." Ignoring the comment, Jack paid for his supplies and left, but not before overhearing that the treaty signing would take place in 3 days at Fort Davis, a day's ride from his ranch. That night, Jack made his decision. Packing enough supplies for several days, he set out at dawn for Fort Davis. He told himself he merely wanted to witness a historic occasion, but he knew the truth. He hoped to see Willow one last time. Fort Davis was crowded when he arrived. Army personnel, government officials, settlers, and representatives from various Apache bands had gathered for the proceedings. Jack scanned the faces of the Apache delegation, finally spotting Chief Many Horses, distinguished by his dignified bearing and the elaborate headdress he wore. And there, standing slightly behind him, was Willow. Their eyes met across the crowded yard, and for a moment, everything else faded away. Willow's composed expression faltered, a flash of emotion crossing her face before she quickly looked away. The ceremony proceeded with formal speeches and the signing of documents. Jack remained at a distance, watching. When the official proceedings ended, the groups began to mingle cautiously. Jack worked his way toward the Apache delegation, uncertain of his reception but determined to speak with Willow. Before he could reach her, he found his path blocked by Tall Bear. "The rancher returns," the warrior said, his expression unreadable. "You have business with our people?" "I came to see the treaty signing," Jack replied evenly, "and to ensure Willow was safe." Tall Bear studied him. "She is safe with her people, as she should be." "I understand," Jack said, hiding his disappointment. "Please give her my regards." As he turned to leave, Tall Bear spoke again. "Many Horses wishes to speak with you." Surprised, Jack followed Tall Bear to where the chief stood with several advisors. Willow was no longer visible. Chief Many Horses was an imposing figure despite his age. His eyes, sharp and assessing, took Jack's measure before he spoke. "My daughter told me of your protection," he said in fluent English. "You risked much to shelter her." "It was the right thing to do," Jack replied, the same words he'd spoken to Willow weeks earlier. "The right thing," Many Horses repeated. "A rare concept between our peoples." He paused. "My daughter also spoke of your character, your respect. These are qualities I value." Jack wasn't sure how to respond. "Your daughter is an exceptional woman," he said finally. "You should be proud." A hint of a smile touched the chief's lips. "Yes, too exceptional, perhaps. She has refused 3 suitable matches since her return." The implication hung in the air. Jack's heart quickened. "The treaty we signed today speaks of peace between our peoples," Many Horses continued. "But paper means nothing without trust. Trust requires understanding. Understanding comes from living together." "What are you suggesting?" Jack asked, hardly daring to hope. "My daughter wishes to return with you," the chief said bluntly. "At first I refused. But I have seen the change in her. And I have heard from Tall Bear of your home, your respectful ways. Perhaps this is what the spirits intend." Before Jack could respond, Willow appeared at her father's side. She stood tall, her expression a mix of defiance and vulnerability that Jack found achingly familiar. "This is your wish?" Jack asked her directly. It is, Willow replied, her voice steady despite the eyes watching them. If it is also yours. In that moment, Jack knew with absolute certainty that it was. The weeks without her had been hollow, the ranch empty despite all his work. There will be difficulties, he said honestly. Not everyone will accept us. I do not seek easy paths, Willow replied. Only true ones. Chief Many Horses cleared his throat. There are conditions. You will marry properly, with ceremonies from both our traditions. She will visit her people regularly, and your children will know both their heritages. Children. The words sent a jolt through Jack, not fear, but a sudden vision of a future he hadn't dared imagine. I accept your conditions, Jack said solemnly, and I promise to honor and protect your daughter for as long as I live. The wedding ceremonies took place over the next 2 days, first an Apache blessing, then a brief Christian service performed by a somewhat reluctant army chaplain. Few from either community attended, but Jack didn't care. As he and Willow rode back to the ranch together, he felt a sense of rightness that transcended the disapproving glances and muttered comments they'd endured. The seasons changed. Spring brought new calves to the ranch and the first curious visits from members of Willow's family. Summer saw the cabin expanded, with Willow adding traditional elements to their home alongside Jack's furnishings. By fall, the neighbors who had initially shunned them began to cautiously accept invitations to share meals, their resistance weakening in the face of the couple's obvious devotion to each other. And when winter came, bringing with it howling winds and snow-covered pastures, Jack woke one morning to find Willow watching him, her eyes filled with a joy she couldn't contain. "What is it?" he asked, pulling her close beneath the warm blankets. "New life," she whispered, placing his hand on her still flat stomach. "Our child grows." Jack felt tears spring to his eyes as he held his wife, overwhelmed by gratitude for the unexpected reward that had come into his life that day she'd hidden in his barn. Outside, snow began to fall, covering the land, Apache and settler territory alike, in a pristine blanket of white, unmarked and full of possibility.